Welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast, featuring advice and interviews about athlete branding. Learn how marketing, public relations, and broadcasting can grow your brand. We also have special episodes to talk about recent news, events, and anything in the world of sports. The podcast is sponsored by Pliable, a versatile marketing, PR, and broadcasting company that identifies opportunities and creates tailored content for its clients. Now it's time to roll. Here's your host, Greg Glenn.
All right, and thank you very much, and welcome inside the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast today. As we get started, we are joined by a great guest for today's audience. It's going to be Tim Hagerty. He is a baseball broadcaster and writer and has spent a lot of time in the broadcast booth, similar to my career, and wanted to welcome into the show Tim. Tim, thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on as a guest. And one of the things that, I find interesting about your background, obviously, is the time that you spent in minor league sports, where we see a lot of athletes who are looking to go to the professional level, where they have an opportunity to, be seen by scouts, and they also get some experience in the media that they might not have seen before. And you and I have kind of seen that in our broadcasting careers. And you obviously also, not only in addition to your broadcasting, but you're also a writer as well. So I like that angle. And you've seen a lot of athletes. You've covered a lot of athletes. So I wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit today. And I want to give people an idea of how you got your start, because that's always a part of somebody's personal brand. So Tim, tell us how you got started in the business.
I was lucky that my high school actually had a cable access TV station in it and had some student produced shows, gave students the opportunity to do play-by-play. So I was fortunate to be announcing games when I was 17 and knew what I would like to study in college. Found a small college in Vermont that was really specialized in broadcasting, Northern Vermont University, way up near the border. Now I live in El Paso, near the other border. And from there, I discovered what I thought was like an inside secret. I found out it wasn't, and that is the baseball winter meetings. I knew I wanted to pursue professional baseball play-by-play, and I had read about this annual seminar they have, the winter meetings, that has everybody from the rookie league general managers all the way to Theo Epstein. And I grabbed my Baseball America directory. This is back when I was in college. We were still using CDs. Now, of course, it's links when you submit your demos, but I was armed with my CDs. And I walked into this auditorium at the baseball winter meetings, and there was about 200 guys that looked exactly like me. Young, mostly male, mostly just out of college age. They had their Baseball America directories. They had their CDs. And I thought, okay, this is a wake-up call to how competitive this is. And there were 4 jobs posted there. That's all for 200 of us. But yeah. I was lucky enough to get a couple of interviews, and it was there that I was hired for Idaho Falls, the Royals rookie league team, and had never been anywhere out west like that. And it remains one of my most fun years, just exploring, being on the bus through Montana and Wyoming and these places I had never been. Great summer.
That's cool. That's an interesting story, because similar to my career path, I actually got the same type of start. I had a cable access channel at my high school, and I broadcast hockey games for the high school team, and had those 2 years of experience. And that gives us a leg up, and it also is one of these things that I've been trying to relate to athletes as well, which is the earlier you can find your passion or find your direction with your career, it gives you a huge advantage, because you then can have 2 to 3, maybe more years of experience in an area that someone else doesn't have. And I know it helped me land my first professional job, because I had more experience than other people. So I think that's one piece of advice we can share with athletes today is find your passion early and then go after it, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. What you do and the sort of thoughts you have for that. I think that athletes, so many of them, once they reach, professional baseball, of course, in my world, and I'm sure it's the same in your world and hockey and the other sports that you work with, but these men and women were always the best player. I mean, with very few exceptions, if you reached Triple-A baseball or Major League Baseball, you were the best Little League player. You were not just the best player on your high school team. You were the best player in your whole city. So I think that their brains, understandably, get wired to think that there's no doubt in their mind they're going to be a longtime Major League player, make a lot of money, and not have to worry about that. Baseball teams, which I believe they still do, the San Diego Padres, when they draft a player who has not graduated college, they offer this window of time that we will pay for the remainder of your college education as part of your signing bonus. So when they draft a junior, they say, okay, you know, we're going to pay for the rest of it in the winter or online. You can study and get that degree. I've talked to players that don't even consider doing that. I mean, they don't even, I don't know what the ratio is to how many guys do it, but I'm sort of surprised. Some guys have said, well, if I do my job well enough, I won't have to worry about my degree. I've heard that. And, you know, the person who told me that years ago had some injury troubles, never did make it to the major leagues. So I think that's good advice by you. If they can get away from that one-track mind, albeit briefly, of thinking only about on the field or on the ice, I think that would help them.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that life after sport is another theme that, you know, when I especially work with professional athletes, they've been in whatever sport it is for however long they've been in it. And all of a sudden, you know, whether it's a major injury or whether it's retirement, they look at themselves and go, what the heck am I going to do? And to be able to fall back on an education like you're talking about and finishing school and taking advantage of the opportunity to have it be paid for, you know, by the team would be an amazing opportunity. So great tip there for athletes listening today when it comes to that. And then, of course, we've got name, image, and likeness now, you know, and everything going on with college sports and the opportunity there. That can also probably be intimidating to some, but it's also a pretty good opportunity when you think about it. When it comes to the athlete's perspective to grow their brand, whether it's on Instagram and Twitter and, you know, Facebook and all these other social media platforms that are out there, that's really a great opportunity for them to build their brand. I'm sure that you would learn a lot more about a player coming in if they had a stronger brand, right, than somebody who comes, you know, from a small town or, you know, out of nowhere and has no social media presence. You know, they don't have much information that you can have on their bio. But the more you learn about them, right, the more it makes them more attractive.
Yeah, it's interesting what you do. And to confess, you know, I haven't thought a lot about that, you know, and in my job, I do hope that athletes are accessible to the media. They're willing to tape an interview. I'm so impressed by the Latin American players that come to the United States, learn English to the point that they're able to give interviews.
Right.
As far as their brand, you know, it was interesting when you were saying that. I was thinking about something I had a chance to be a fly on the wall for. Every major league team now will do a social media seminar. Sometimes it takes place in spring training. Other times they'll travel around to every minor league affiliate, give a presentation. And you and your job, I think you would have been really interested to see this. You won't agree with this, but the first advice was, okay, when it comes to Twitter and Facebook and social media, don't do it. But again, that's from a major league team's perspective,
right,
because they know. He went on to explain what he meant by that. And this presentation, it showed two images of Miami Dolphins players from a couple of years ago. And they scrolled through the feed. One of them, the photos of this person are at a charity event, or it's a photo and they're very professional. The other one, it's posted at 3 a.m. He's at a club. He's holding a bottle. And the advice
was this the same athlete or a different
No,
athlete?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was two different Miami Dolphins players.
Yep.
And the person giving the presentation had a connection to the Miami Dolphins and said, a high-end car dealership called the Miami Dolphins looking for an endorser, looking for someone to appear in commercials, looking to pay somebody to be part of this brand. And he said, which player do you think they picked? So his advice was, if you're going to do it, think about 3 bodies of people. And his advice for those 3 people, one, he showed this photo of this lovely old woman. He said, picture your grandmother. Don't be writing expletives. You wouldn't be saying swears in front of grandma. The next one was this massive crowd. It said, picture your post being witnessed by tens of thousands of people. A lot of times it is.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have tens of thousands of followers, if you say something and it becomes shared,
Yeah.
it's going to reach that many people. And the third, this Padres employee showed an image of AJ Preller, who's the Padres general manager. And that third photo, when he showed that, the room, there was a gasp. So I don't know. I guess that's my free advice to you in the athlete branding world, is that I think that maybe a young person has become trained on social media, whereas me, someone in my late 30s, we didn't grow up with this. They might not grasp the ultimate decision maker, your head coach, your general manager, your manager, could see this post. And I got the feeling that not everyone in the room understood that. You know, they picture the general manager in this executive suite and he's talking to other GMs. But the fact is, these people have the internet too. They have a public relations department. You know, if you retweet something completely inappropriate, or if you type something that, you know, is talking about a news event that's controversial, or if you say anything not confrontational, but controversial about your organization, I mean, that's going to reach people. So yeah, it's interesting what you said. I know that was a long answer, but
no, that's a great example. That's a great example of target audiences, you know, and who's going to look at this, because I think a lot of people, they don't think about that before they hit send, you know? And so that's a great point. The other thing I wanted to talk with you about today, Tim, is obviously you and I are both broadcasters. We see a lot of athletes. I was thinking about it the other day when I was working on a press release, you know, met hundreds of athletes, and I've got my favorites, just like I'm sure you do too, right? I could name probably 5 of them right on my fingers here today that I would say, give me this, you know, man or woman any day to do an interview, and they will nail it. And they will be very approachable. They'll be professional. They might even be humorous, you know, and they've got what I call the personality factor that makes them really marketable. They get it, right? So I always talk about the 3 Ps when it comes to an athlete's brand. And the first one is potential. You've got to be an elite athlete, kind of like you referenced earlier. You've got to be able to not only stand out at your high school or in your city or in your state or in your region, you've got to be elite. And then you've also got to have a personality. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here in a minute, where basically if you're doing an interview, make it count, make yourself stand out, and let your personality come through. And then the third one is passion. You have got to have passion for what you're doing, because if you don't, you and I as broadcasters, we can see right through it. You can see the ones who really want to go next level. And talk to me about when you have an interview, or maybe interviews you've done, or what you think makes an athlete a really good interview.
Yeah, I think public relations departments across all major league sports, I think understandably, they will try to create the answers to be generic, I don't know, robotic. And sometimes it feels
bland
like
comes to mind. Yeah, bland, boring.
Yeah,
they don't want you to get in trouble. They don't want to get you in trouble because they're looking out for the team.
Exactly, and that perspective is totally understandable, and I totally agree with their viewpoint to not say anything that's going to cause problems for the next game.
Exactly.
I would say though that no matter who you are, athlete or not, when you're on a show, when you're on an interview, have your default be honesty. I think the best athlete interviews are when I hear a player say, to be honest with you, I was really disappointed to be sent down from the major leagues to Triple-A, and I regret it, but it really weighed on me for a week. And I think, you know, it really affected my performance. But I remember one time a player telling me, it was actually my wife that sort of said, okay, we've given you a few days to sulk. You got to go out there and compete. You got to go out there and prove them wrong. And it was such interesting radio. Here's a person in the interview giving us feelings, giving us emotion we can all understand. We probably all have had moments in our life where we weren't picked for something that we really want. And then I compare that to maybe the generic answer. That answer would be, yeah, I'm down here looking to play well and get back to the majors soon.
Yeah.
It's less interesting. So I think,
and it also does, and it does, and to your point, it doesn't hurt the team to share your story. That's the idea.
Agreed.
Share your story. You don't have to worry about anything else.
Totally. I mean, I think that's what we're kind of learning this day and age, where podcasts, they're longer interviews. They're not edited into 15-second sound bites. And I think people can tell when somebody's real or not. It's like a politician on stage, like, sometimes they sort of like speak for 60 seconds and don't say anything.
Right.
I think that people in the public eye, it's totally okay to admit some weakness or admit some feelings. I just think, even off the air, I think that's a great way to be with your personalities, to like, okay, I can still be a confident, successful person and say, yeah, I missed that call. I can still rattle off 5 games that come to mind that as an announcer, I think back and it didn't come out right. It didn't sound as dramatic or as descriptive as it should have. That's not saying I'm a bad announcer. It's just sort of saying, I had food in my shirt. I had something that day didn't go well.
Yep. Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying about that. And some days we're going to have better days than others. I mean, I know I feel it when I have a great call of a game. You can feel it. When you have a not so good call, you kind of feel that too. So that's an interesting perspective as well. Well, I'm curious, Tim, growing up, who was your favorite athlete or an athlete that you looked up to?
Yeah, this is going to sound random. I'm from Massachusetts, but probably my earliest baseball memory, I was 5 years old. This is in the late 1980s. And the Cardinals had this great shortstop, Ozzie Smith. And he had a tradition that on opening day in St. Louis, he would run on the field and do a backflip.
Yeah.
On the turf in St. Louis. And I can remember speaking to my parents, who is this guy? And why is this guy doing flips? And obviously I was drawn to that. And to this day, I still have his baseball cards. I had a chance to interview him one time, which was a great thrill. And I think about that now because there's been an evolution in baseball. It was so traditional that, things as subtle as pumping your fist on a home run, there were people that were bothered by that you don't act like that on a professional baseball field. And there still are some old school people that looked at that as disrespectful to the opponent. I'm sure there were people in the 1980s that rolled their eyes at Ozzie Smith doing backflips.
Right.
But here we are in 2022, and he's the first name that came to mind when you asked me that. So I guess that shows if you have that confidence and you have that desire to have a little style and have a little flair, it's not disrespectful to the opponent. I'm bothered by anybody pointing their finger at an opponent. I think that crosses the line. Yeah. But when it comes to a celebration or some style, I think that shows that does grab people's attention, makes you likable to a fan.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so then the other question I have for you, and this is kind of one that, I've experienced in my broadcasting career, but your favorite broadcasting memory or your favorite memory in your career, whether it was a win, a championship, a victory, a game, a moment for you that really stands out that makes you feel good.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to call 2,000 baseball games. One of those was a championship, which is a great memory, but the game that comes to mind is August 9th, 2019. It's kind of a personal story. On August 3rd, 2019 was El Paso's worst day. There was a mass shooting at a Walmart here that remains a wound here. This is just 6 days after that. And the El Paso Chihuahuas, the Triple-A team that I broadcast for, 6 days later, August 9th, scored 10 runs in the bottom of the ninth inning to come back and win a game, ending it on a walk-off grand slam. That home run set a team home run record for the Pacific Coast League. So all of that's happening on that one swing. The call, I think, is good, came out very enthusiastically, summarized everything that had happened within that game, mentioned the record. And the reason it's so meaningful is that night I got 4 different messages, either an email, a tweet, or a text, and they all had sort of the same theme. They said, I listened to that ninth inning, and for 15 minutes, I forgot about August 3rd. Another said, listening to that game took me to a time before the tragedy.
Right. Yeah.
And it was, baseball has examples of that. Fall of 2001, people in New York City say that the Yankees and the Mets sort of momentarily took their mind off the tragedy of 9/11. Or in the 1940s, there's examples of that where baseball sort of was an escape from World War II. So that's the reason why that night is so memorable to me, is that those messages I got after the game kind of showed me that was El Paso's version of that.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And I think it speaks to, like we've talked about a little bit earlier, is that emotional side and the story behind what you do. And I think that's a great example, because we can all call championships, but it sometimes is the thing that means the most that really ends up being most important in our career. So good example. Also wanted to touch on one last broadcasting topic for us, and advice for some of these baseball players, or even other players in other sports, when they have the opportunity to go on a broadcast. Many times athletes who get hurt may be asked to go up, or you might invite them up if you know their personality well enough to say, hey, come on up. Or the PR person says, hey, you're injured. Or the coaches, I've seen coaches do it because they're just like trying to get the guy back in the lineup. So they're going to throw him up there and make him want to come back in the lineup even more. But the idea is, what in your opinion could an athlete do, or things they should think about when they go up in the booth and work with a broadcaster to make it kind of a success?
Well, when it comes to athletes currently on the team that are injured, I haven't had as much experience with that. But for former athletes that then want to pursue it as a job, I think there is something that comes to mind that the great ones do. And that is, don't rely solely on your own experience. Gather information on that game and those teams the same way a reporter or a play-by-play announcer would. Jim Cott, who in July is going to go into the Hall of Fame, after his long major league career, pitched for decades, has become a successful analyst, Yankees TV, MLB Network, among others. Mm-hmm. So in 2016, El Paso was playing in the Triple-A championship game, and Cott was the analyst on NBC Sports Network for that game. And the game was on a Tuesday, and Jim Cott, with his resume to broadcast a Triple-A playoff game, could have easily shown up 3 hours prior to the game, sat in the booth, made his observations, particularly about the pitchers, collected his check, and gone home. But Monday, the day before the game, I'm there at media day. Teams are taking batting practice, and there's Jim Cott introducing himself to these Triple-A coaches, managers, players, asking the team announcers like myself, who had covered every game that year, about the ins and outs of the team. This guy already has such a resume, but had such a desire to have a good broadcast that he spent what could have been a day off doing his homework.
Right.
And then you watch the telecast, and he's not talking about Greg Glynn's curveball and how I used to throw it this way. He's not talking about his own career. What he's doing is he's talking about Greg Glynn's curveball, and then he says he's been working on that. The Padres have asked him to do more of that. It was great. Yeah. So I think that's what the great analysts do. I love watching MLB Network, and I think that's so noticeable. The guys who follow the current game. There are a few baseball TV analysts that had great careers, and they're glib and they're bright. But they're sort of like speaking like it's 1992.
Yeah.
The names that they're mentioning.
Yeah.
And these are people I respect and they do a good
Right.
job, but I think it's so noticeable when a guy not only or woman not only has a playing resume, but they've also done their homework.
Yep. I would agree with that. And you can tell, I mean, as broadcasters, we know how much it takes to get ready for a broadcast, and you can tell the difference when someone really prepares. So I think that's a great tip for anybody out there that's thinking about becoming a broadcaster or looking to try and do color commentary. That is a really good tip. Of course, Pliable provides color commentary coaching for professional athletes. If you're interested, check out pliablemarketing.com. And I also wanted to finish today by thanking you, Tim, for coming on to the podcast today. And I want to give you and your brother a shout out because he is terrific. And of course, Paul Hagerty, who I know was a great acupuncturist from his days at TB12 Sports in Foxboro. And one of the reasons why, actually, Tim, I don't know if you know this, but one of the reasons why my company name is Pliable is because of the TB12 method and everything they do down there. It really makes a big difference for my health and my physical and mental health. So with that being said, I wanted to thank you and also give you a chance, allow people to connect with you. So we have a lot of baseball players who are probably listening to this episode, whether they're future, stars or whether they're maybe current or past athletes that might want to get in touch with you. How can they do that?
Yeah, thanks for your kind words about my brother. First off, he does do a great job. And yeah, my email is on the El Paso Chihuahuas website. That's the Padres Triple-A team here in El Paso. So feel free to reach out. I do have Twitter, TD Haggerty, like Tim Donald Haggerty. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to mention that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what it's all about, is connect to people. I like to bring people together, give people an opportunity to connect with people in the industry that might be able to help them and in some certain way. And that's all part of what we do here at Pliable. And again, want to thank you very much for your time today, Tim. And again, thanks for being on the podcast.
Well, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast, because that's how we roll.